Hello, everyone. This is Venus Brown, and I am back with another breakdown and discussion of House of the Dragon. This is going to be season 3, episode 4, called Tumbleton. And I don't know in the description if I spelt that correct. I will go back and check it later. Anyway, I know I am late. I realize that I am behind the ball and things have gone on. We have episode 4, 5, and 6 already out. But this is where I am. I was on vacation in Ireland for 2.5 weeks. It takes me a bit to get this stuff back underway and get things going. And I was going to actually run this live stream last night, but it was getting too late into the night and I just couldn't do it. So here I am this morning, late morning, but still. And now we're going to do this. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was kind of the themes going on in this episode. And they're really kind of interwoven. They overlap a lot because I think that's what this episode was about, is these themes, is laying the groundwork for things to come, things in this storyline that exist, creating these stories and legends that we hear about in A Song of Ice and Fire, building them up, whether they're fake or real. It seems that a lot of them are made up just to make things seem a certain way, but are really being created by the words and actions of others. And then foreshadowing. There's a decent amount of foreshadowing in this episode, but exactly what are they foreshadowing? There are some things that if you have read the books, you might be fairly clear on, but even if you have read the books, there are some things that you might not be so clear on, but definitely noticing some foreshadowing. And the other thing that I've definitely noticed in this episode is dropped threads and the butterfly effects that George R.R. Martin had talked about, that he was very, very upset about. Those dropped threads, dropped storylines that are now being rewoven into the story at a different time and in a different way. So for laying the groundwork, I have the fact that we finally see Aegon with his dragon Silverwing. And it appears that he is dead. He looks so dry and crusty, but Aegon is saying he's alive. And is there some possibility that he's alive? I don't really know, but I am going to hold out hope. And then another dragon. This doesn't really lay the. I'll talk about that dragon later on. We have stuff going on with Aegon that he's going through all kinds of shit and he's just being a stupid fucking idiot. But I think the stuff he's going through now is going to build him into a different person later on. So that's laying the groundwork for his story arc. And then we have this part where Alan brings up the idea of they had cats in their ships to deal with all the rats and mice. And so I think that is definitely laying groundwork for some things, and also dips into the whole dropped themes and butterfly effects that are now being picked up and rewoven into the story. All right, and then taxes. So we have one brief scene, and I know I'm kind of like talking about some of the scenes now when I'm going to do a breakdown later. It's just the way that I have the breakdown. I wanted to do this first. So we have this brief scene with our new master of coin, who brings up the idea of taxes. And this, spoiler warning for the books and possibly what's coming in the show, this is one of the things that is going to add to Rhaenyra's storyline in A Song of Ice and Fire that is not necessarily going to be a positive. The taxes. All right. And taxes are always a freaking complicating thing that often causes problems but is used to try to solve problems. All right. So our stories and legends, we have Larys and Aegon going on their tour, and Larys keeps telling Aegon, like, you've got to keep doing this shit. You've got to keep putting on this role, and you've got to stop running your mouth and doing stupid shit, because eventually all the information that we're getting and all these stories that are building from what other people are saying and from what's going on and them not knowing that you're alive is going to build this legendary story for you to come back from like you're some freaking major legend. So yeah, building those stories and legends. Let's see. Maegor. We have two things. This is a book spoiler concerning Maegor. And this is a spoiler for the episode. So book spoiler, spoiler for the episode. Helena does appear to be pregnant. We weren't sure about that before. Now we're pretty confident she's pregnant. And this is probably that Maegor that was supposed to be born a while ago. And they are now picking that thread up, that butterfly up, and putting him back into the picture in a later situation. So it will change the story, but how much, I don't know. The other instance of Maegor being spoken of, this is a little bit of a book spoiler, but not much. Rhaenyra is repeatedly referred to as Maegor come again in A Song of Ice and Fire, and she definitely brings that up in this episode, that if she does certain things, it is going to look bad on her, and they're going to call her Maegor come again, which, even though she seems to be avoiding those things, that seems to be what's going to happen anyway, is she's going to be referred to as Maegor come again. All right, let's see. Ormond said several things in this episode that indicate to me that he is a major part of the reason that Rhaenyra has certain ideas in A Song of Ice and Fire that are written about her over and over again by multiple people that seem to possibly be made up or massively exaggerated. And I know it's not just Ormond, there's other people that are contributing to this, but there were definitely certain specific sentences he said repeatedly in this episode that felt like they were building that image that she has in A Song of Ice and Fire that so far we have not seen a lot of. We keep thinking maybe that's going to build up and it's going to start, and she is going to be more like A Song of Ice and Fire has indicated. But so far that doesn't really seem to be happening. Maybe a little bit on the edges, but not much. So far it looks like a lot of building up rumors and ideas about a person, but them not really being based on reality, which isn't surprising. This is a storytelling of three different biased opinions told in their point of view. So it is what it is. All right, foreshadowing. What do I have? Foreshadowing when Rhaenyra is talking to Alan of Hull about her father's models. And she says it's a reminder that even great dynasties like Old Valyria can be taken down in an instant. And to me, that's kind of a foreshadowing of things to come. Not necessarily that their entire regime is going to be taken down, but it's really going to be close to that. And I've talked about this before. This might be another spoiler, but if you've watched Game of Thrones, then you should know that the Valerians are no longer. By the time we get to Game of Thrones, there don't seem to be any Valerians. And I think most of his fleet has already been wiped out, and Corlys is down to him, a few of his soldiers, and his family, and not much else. So I think this is really a big bulk of that dynasty falling. So might be a spoiler, but I don't think it really is. I think people can figure that out. Ulf. Okay, this isn't a just this episode thing. We have been seeing things with Ulf throughout the series that he is not loyal. He doesn't have any real loyalty. He's not necessarily the greatest guy. And more things are happening to him that I think he's taking as slights towards him personally. And I think that is eventually, spoiler, going to make him turn cloak to the other side. So, foreshadowing for Ulf going the other way because he keeps getting slighted. There may be more to it than that, but right now that's what it looks like. All right, dropped threads. We have the cats thing that Alan brought up. That is one of the dropped threads. These are all going to be spoilers in this dropped threads things because they're all from the book and haven't necessarily been picked up until recently. So the cats, and I'm not going to say more than that. The fact that Helena is pregnant now, probably with Maegor who should have been born earlier, but it looks like now maybe this will be Maegor's birth, and we'll see how they weave those things in later on. Sorry, I cannot read this. Silverwing. So Aegon sees Silverwing and he goes over there. Silverwing looks very, very bad. He looks like he's been dead a while. He's dried out. He is just laying there. There doesn't seem to be any movement, not breathing, not anything. No eyes opening, no trembles, nothing. Just looks very still, very dry, very dusty. Somebody said that they saw holes in his face. I didn't see holes in his face necessarily, but still looks very, very bad. And in the books, okay, let's not say in the books, not yet, but Aegon says he's alive. Like, I think Aegon can sense that he's alive. They're supposed to have these strong bonds between the animal, between the creature and the human that has claimed the dragon. So I think that bond is there and that Aegon can sense that this dragon is alive. Maybe the fact that Aegon is finally there will help give this dragon a little boost to start recovering. I don't know. But also, as I've said multiple times in my breakdown, which you'll see later, that there's so many parts of this story that I don't know where we are on the timeline, and I don't know how long it's been since the dragon was hurt like it was or killed and that Aegon was burnt. Which also is a issue with Helena being pregnant. I don't know how long it's been since Aegon got into the situation, because she certainly wouldn't have been having sex with him after he got into this situation. So that whole thing, the fact that I don't know how long that's been, it contributes to a lot of things. And I think there's other things in the show where the timeline isn't very clear and it's hard to know exactly what's going on because we don't know how much time has passed. The thing with Aemon being missing, the last time we saw him, I think was last episode, and he was badly injured, looked like he was going to die, but I don't think he is going to die. And Alice Rivers was there. Now we see Alice Rivers and she's saying he's gone. The dragon seems to be gone. We don't know how this dragon is being hidden. I don't think the dragon really left or went anywhere. And I don't think Aemon left. So that's another thing where I don't know how long it's been since that last episode. So what's really going on? Has it been that long? Is he taking his time to heal? What's going on? I don't know. Let's see. And the other thing is Nettles. So a lot of us were very upset that Nettles was left out of the picture, and that now they seem to be going along the storyline that Rhaena is going to pick up Nettles' storyline. It's still not the same thing. She is a person who was brought up in royalty. She has a certain amount of privileges. She is Valyrian and Targaryen, so she does have the blood connection that they think that they need to claim a dragon. Whereas Nettles in the book did not have that. She was supposed to be somebody who was not Valyrian, was not Targaryen, and didn't seem to have any bloodline. Now, there's no guarantee. She could have been a bastard and she could have had bloodlines from anywhere. But the storyline makes it sound like she really didn't. And she was not royal. She had no royal past in her past at all. So that's another thing where they really dropped the ball on it. And I think George was very upset about that. He was very upset about Maelor. I think I said Maegor. I think maybe Helena's kid's name is going to be Maelor, not Maegor. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that. Either way, lots of dropped threads, and they seem to be being picked up and put back together. Let's see how they do. We'll see. All right. Now, we're going to go through favorites and least favorites, and then I added some extra categories in there beyond my favorites and least favorites. So first is my piece of shit of the episode. Like, what is wrong with this guy? Ormond is such a big piece of shit. This guy, he comes across as being all fine and upstanding. He's trying to make it look like he's calm and well demeanored, and he has all the best intentions for these people that he's made into his slaves, basically, that he's imprisoned. And then we see later on, he's got this whole other side to him. And honestly, people like this, they tend to be that way. They come across as being very charming, very upstanding and correct and clean cut and top of the line. But behind closed doors, or while people aren't watching, while certain people aren't watching, they're fucking blowing gaskets over stupid shit. They're making up all kinds of shit to be mad about. One of the things I learned in sociology from some of my stuff dealing with domestic violence is that people think they're losing control. Oh, they just got mad at me because they lost control. They were out of control. This guy's not out of control. And many of these abusers that are like this are not out of control. Because what do? They hold their demeanor. They keep calm and cool and collected. And then they choose to release their anger and their frustration and their abuse when they feel it is advantageous to them. So if a bunch of people out in public are around, they're a lot less likely to do that. But when those public people that they don't want to know that they're this way are not around, when they're around the people that they know and care about who are around them all the time, they're a little more likely to let loose. They're not losing control. They are in control of their abusive shit. They are in control of their temper tantrums, and that's what I'm going to call this guy's shit, is temper tantrums. So he's my piece of shit for more reasons than just him being an abuser. Like he's definitely shown that he is sexist, he is racist, he is what do we call it? Oh gosh. Like he thinks that his family is superior. He is superior. Everybody else is below him. He uses language throughout the episode to indicate that he's teaching this young kid that he's warded for years that he has to act a certain way around those who are under him. He's constantly talking about people being under him and under them, whether they're royalty or not, whether they're in the higher echelons or not. And then he uses other language later on that's like just straight up, oh no, Targaryens are fucking beasts and aliens, and they're far lacking from us. The only reason that we were not able to compete with them is because they used magic and cunning and shit like that to it sounded like he was saying to create the dragons. They didn't create the dragons. My understanding is they used magic in Valyria, magic and spells and things like that in Valyria to control the dragons. So, and yeah, when you've got a species that controls dragons and nobody else seems to be able to, that causes problems. That definitely makes it hard for you to fight against them. But he has this attitude, definitely, like he thinks the high towers are the most superior above everyone. And he definitely said some things about women that were yeah, we know that a lot of the men in Westeros do not appreciate a female being on the throne, but he said some stuff that was just really beyond just the typical why they think a female shouldn't be on the throne. Like, just beyond the pale. Anyway, that's my piece of shit for the episode. Plus, he fucking made that kid kill for him. For something that the kid was vehemently in disagreement with him over. Because he's been abusing this kid so long and he's got this kid so traumatized that he doesn't want to disappoint him and he is afraid of him. So you have both those complicating realities. He thinks this is his father figure. I mean, this guy has basically been his father figure. He thinks he has the best interest at heart and he doesn't want to disappoint him, but he's also fucking scared of him because he is a fucking abusive asshole. And he saves his abuse for those people that he knows are closest to him that won't freaking basically rat him out for being a fucking abusive piece of shit. Alright. VIP of the episode. Alan of Hull, like when he talked to his father about when his father told him to go to King's Landing in his stead to take his place as the hand, at least for the time being, to give some advice or whatever. He's like, I don't know anything about the court. Like, you're putting me in the middle of something that I am completely ill-equipped to deal with. But he freaking did it. He went there. He seemed to hold himself very well. And him and Rhaenyra really clicked. Plus, he gave her the novel idea of actually using cats to get rid of these rats that have overrun the keep. So I'm giving him VIP because I think he did a very good job in a situation that he wasn't very comfortable with, at least initially, that he felt very unprepared for, and he still did a good job. He held himself up well, and he gave her good advice, and Rhaenyra could use whatever good advice she can get, especially for those problems she's asking for advice on. Like, a lot of her counsel are giving her advice that she's not asking for. This guy gave her advice that she was specifically concerned about, for something that she was specifically worried about. And I think that's important. Listen to what people actually need help with, what they're actually asking for advice and help on, and help with that. But when it's a bunch of stuff that they're not asking for your information, they're not asking for your advice on that topic, advise them on the topic they're asking for. And when you want to talk about some other topic, make sure you've at least broached the stuff they're asking about first before you go on to that other topic. Definitely seeing a lot of her counsel, like the entire time, just like saying what they want, just arguing with each other, never on the same page, and giving her hell, but not really advising her the way that she needs to be or the way she's asking to be. All right. Let's see. Best scene. Oh, no, let's do worst scene first. Worst scene. Cole being a fucking petulant hypocrite. Which I know, I complain about Cole almost every episode. I'm so sick and tired of him. I do want him to just be gone, to die or disappear or something and be gone. Put him out of our misery and out of his misery. But yeah, it's just being a petulant asshole. So, and that was worst scene. So the scene I'm referring to is when Gwen suggests that they should send a note out to his uncle or cousin, send a note out to his cousin and join forces with them. And Cole's like, no, we're not going to do that. And he starts going into this spiel about how these people are so privileged and they can go back home when they're done playing their war games, and whoever wins or loses this week has won or lost or whatever, and they can go home to their feather beds, but he doesn't have such a place. And I'm like, and complaining about the fact that Rhaenyra's on the throne and he has no home as long as she is. And I'm like, she put you in the position you're in. She raised you up from nothing. And then Alicent fucking put you in the position you're currently in and raised you up even more when you should have been put to death. Like, you're complaining about all these people having all these privileges and just fail to see all the privilege you have. And again, getting all upset about the dragons and wanting to avoid the dragons at all costs because, oh, they're going to make them beasts. They're going to make them immoral. I'm like, your morals fucking left the building a long fucking time ago, if you ever had them. Like, to me, they're all for show. Okay, now, best scene. So after Daemon goes and talks to Jane Eyre and they have this very interesting talk, and the first thing happens is she makes this comment when he made the comment about the dragons and she was supposed to send troops, and she says something to the effect of, yeah, maybe I should have sent babes, because that's basically what Rhaenyra did with these dragons. She sent me baby dragons. So maybe I should have sent baby soldiers. Okay, but then right after he has that discussion with her, and she does agree to at least pay him money, not give him soldiers, which he didn't want soldiers anyway. He's trying to take off, and Caraxes is having none of it. Caraxes is like, something is fucked up, something is wrong, I'm not listening to you. Like, Daemon is hollering at him and trying to give him calls, and he ain't hearing any of it. He is yelling and hooping and hollering, and he's flying to where he wants because he senses this dragon, which is Sheep Stiller. So that whole thing with the way Caraxes was being, and I was like, yeah, Caraxes gonna freaking find Sheep Stealer and Rhaena for him, and he did. So that was my favorite scene, was just Caraxes being a little brat, because he's like, no, I know something's going on, and I know better than you do, so here we go. Yeah, Great scene. All right, so other category or other things. Idiot of the episode, Aegon, for fucking constantly over and over every time that he should just be playing his role as some kind of poor peasant or whatever and not throwing his temper around because of his overprivileged fucking attitude about being royal. Like, yes, you're royal. Yes, you were born and raised with this fucking privilege all your life, but right now you are pretending to be somebody else. And if you want to stay alive and you want to stay in good condition, you should be playing along with that. And instead, he just, every fucking time you turn around, he is calling out his privilege and he is dropping his cover because he's too fucking stubborn to just fucking do what needs to be done to keep himself safe, unharmed, and not found out. So, what an idiot. What an idiot. All right, let's see. Missing person. Now, there's plenty of missing persons at this point in the episode, but the one that I'm most concerned about right now is Bela. Bela had her fiance die. They grew up together as children. Like, there is a connection, and he died, and she probably feels extremely guilty for fucking listening to him when she knew he was being a bit stupid and not following the queen, which she should also know that could get her and him killed just for just for disobeying the queen. But like, I feel like she is probably in a really bad state, and we saw her, I think, once or twice the episode before, and not at all this episode. So I'm very concerned about not seeing her, not knowing how she's doing, how she's taking all of this, just not seeing her at all, not knowing where she is or what she's doing. Okay, anything else? Most heart-wrenching. Most heart-wrenching for me, it's a little bit tied between seeing Rhaenys dragon, I think it was Meleys, what the remains of it just left there. I think it's in Rook's Rest, just left there, decaying, very decayed, very decrepit, flies falling all around it. Just looks really freaking sad, and nobody fucking removed those remains. All they did was chop off its head and take it through King's Landing, and they left the rest of it there for those people in that town to deal with it, which isn't good. Like, you have a bunch of rotting flesh sitting right on top of your city walls. That was very, very heart-wrenching to me. But also seeing what is obviously going on with Darren and Ormond. Ormond is obviously brainwashing him and traumatizing him and abusing him. So much so he's super hyper vigilant of things that are going on around him. He knows when this guy's getting ready to blow a fuse. But he also doesn't know how to fucking deal with all this shit that this guy, like, as soon as we'll talk about it in the breakdown, but as soon as he makes a comparison to the kid's biological father, you can see this complete fear and terror take over his face. Like, he is just frightened that he's being compared to Viserys, which means more of this brainwashing and traumatizing is happening when it comes to who he is, who his family members are, his bloodline. He repeatedly says stuff about his blood being tinged and shit like that, and about Targaryens being aliens and beasts and all of this stuff. Like, this is part of who this kid is, and you're basically saying part of who he is poison, toxic, demon, beastly, alien. What a great father figure. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the breakdown of this episode. That's, I think, gonna be this one. And I probably, nope. This one. All right. So let's go ahead and get this started. Yes, this is pre-recorded. I find it easier to do that because I have a lot of pauses and stutters and repeating myself that I do. The Dragon, episode 4. So in House of the Dragon, season 3, episode 4, called Tumbleton, I wanted to find out if the introductions that we've been seeing in this season are actually the same as the previous seasons. And what I found out is that there is more of a drumming sound in this introduction. It may possibly start a little bit earlier in the song. I'm not 100% sure of that, but it does seem like we start a little bit earlier on this season. Just wanted to get that out there because I had been thinking about that, and it did sound to me like this introduction had a more drummy sound, because it does. Now we start the episode in Tumbleton. We first see a little bunny in the background, and when I first saw that bunny, I thought maybe it was a commercial for like Cadbury Easter bunnies or something like that. But no, it was a bunny for the show. I know somebody said what the bunny was supposed to represent, but I don't remember what it was they said. So regardless, we start in Tumbleton. The soldiers are taking over the town, and in the scene, what they're doing is attaining housing by taking over the houses of people that live there. This is not an unusual thing. We used to do this ourselves for military in the US up to a certain point. At some point, that became illegal, but originally that was kind of the normal thing to do. An army would move in, they need shelter, they need food, rather than the army paying an extra bunch of money for everybody to be put up in barracks or apartments or hotels or whatever. They would literally move into the houses of people that lived there. Not allowed anymore, at least not in America, but it used to be. Unfortunately, another thing that occurs normally in wars that should never have been a normal thing, it should never have been normalized, should never have been allowed, but has been typical in a lot of wars, and unfortunately still is typical in a lot of wars, is soldiers taking advantage of women, raping them, sexually assaulting them, hurting men too, all as like a spoils of war thing, which to me is just appalling, but it does happen. And this also happens in this episode, which sucks, but it's the reality. One of the soldiers that they show taking over somebody else's household is taking over, of course, one of the very wealthy in the town's household, and they are complaining about him sleeping in their bedroom, in their bed, him taking over the whole household. When they don't agree with him being there, they don't agree with his position, they have valid reason to be upset, but as I said, this is the kind of normal thing, even though it shouldn't be. It never should have been normalized, yet here we are today, and it still happens. And they have this back and forth discussion about the king, queen, whatever, who's ruling the country. And he paints Rhaenyra as the pretender, who's pretending to be queen, who has no business in this position. The female in this couple actually stands up for Rhaenyra and says, yes, we freaking bent the knee to Rhaenyra because she is the queen. And she made it very clear that she sees Rhaenyra as a legitimate queen. And he got all freaking uptight about it. He didn't throw a temper tantrum, which he will do later in the episode, but he got all pissed off about it and said something to the effect of she's a bitch and a bunch of other names. And later on, he goes on to complain to his nephew that he's been warding for these last several years that they had the audacity to put a female up on the Iron Throne. And that in his view, the High Towers belong on that throne because I guess they used to rule a lot of Westeros, not all of it, because if we recall the stories say that Aegon and his 2 wives came to Westeros and they united the 7 kingdoms, which were not united. They were splintered sections of the country that kind of ruled themselves, and some of them not so well ruled themselves, and they brought the country together by force. But I'm not saying that it was the right thing to do, but I am saying that claiming that they are the heirs to the Iron Throne, that they were ruling over Westeros, sounds false to me. But then again, that's based on the stories, and the stories aren't necessarily legitimate. And either way, he's talking about her being a pretender and her committing treason. And I'm like, yeah, like you're committing treason, like your entire family has committed treason. The actual pretender, the actual treasonous ones have been your entire family. But we're going to sit here and pretend like everything you did was fucking legitimate? I don't think so. And they weren't going for that either. They were openly stating that he was a fraud, basically, that he was the treasonous one. But he didn't behead them or anything, although I wouldn't put it past him. Not after seeing what I've seen to the end of this episode. We go to Rhaenyra's council table, and there are not a lot of people there. If you recall, she dismissed the people that were working for her on Dragonstone because they have repeatedly failed her and repeatedly undermined her. Except for Daemon and his competition, the White Worm, which I kind of find amusing, but they are exes. They are exes with a complicating past. Some of it to me is a bit playful, but it's still competition, and I suspect things are going to get dirty later on. Right now, they're not quite there. But Rhaenyra is laying out the reality of the situation she's in because of Lord Ormond taking over Tumbleton, which she's like, it doesn't even make sense that he took over Tumbleton. It's not like a very important town in a war like this. They are not well manned. They are a market town. It's not a good reason other than he's holding her people captive, basically. And then she goes on to lay out that if she were to use her dragons to force him out of there, which she could easily do, that would make her look like Maegor come again, and it would. But that there's not much else she can do. Like in the situation they're in, she's stuck with her people being held captive by this man's army without much that she can really do about it. She doesn't have money in her coffers, and things are really in a bad state right now, and she can't seem to do much of anything about it. The little bit she can do, she seems to be trying. But as has been the case with her council the entire time, it's a freaking shit show. The advising coming from the council is always split and splintered, and everybody has their own ideas of what she should do, and she tends to do what she's gonna do. Although she does sometimes take advice from certain people, but it's like arguing on all sides all the time. Even when there's only like 3 people sitting at the table, you still got arguing all the time. Nobody's on the same page, and nobody seems to have a good idea of what the primary goals should be for her right then. So she's trying to figure out what to do about this. She doesn't want to do the dragon thing because she knows it's going to make her look bad. And she's trying to make a name for herself. And Miss Sarah continues to do what she's been doing, which is to try to speak for the small folk and what she should do for the small folk. And kind of, you know, these other issues, they're not home issues. They are important, but these home issues are important also, and they need to be taken care of. But she's not really giving a lot of advice when it comes to the whole Ormond taking over Tumbleton. She seems like she has ideas about it, but I'm not hearing her say anything. So I don't know if it's that she really has ideas about it or that she's just so stuck on taking care of the small people in King's Landing that she's not entertaining the other stuff. But Maester Orwell comes up with a suggestion. You like root them out town by town. They're close to several different towns. You go in there, you find out who these loyalists are, and you deal with things that way. It's not completely bloodless, but it is a lot less damning than coming into Tumbleton with dragons to burn everybody up. And then the other main issue that they're dealing with, the coffers being empty, they're like, well, how about you come up with somebody you assign as the master of coins. They can deal with the coinage problem. And then when things go bad, like they probably will because they're already bad, then the blame can be put on the master of coins. She had already talked to Tormund Manderly and had been kind of intrigued by his response to her invading their households and calling them out. So she's called on him to become the master of coin. And who knows, he may do a very good job, kind of like when Tylan called in Tywin Lannister and thought that he wasn't going to do a great job, but he actually did a phenomenal job. It might be something like that, but we don't know. Either way, they start off the episode with this council problem. She comes up with the idea to have Tormund Manderly be the master of coin, and later on we're going to see him in the council chamber talking about some of the stuff with the empty royal coffers. Then we have Alicent and Rhaenyra talking. Rhaenyra has been going to Alicent more and more for advice. I kind of don't blame her. She's the closest person to have been in a position like her of everybody she knows. Before her was Rhaenys, but Rhaenys is gone. She's dead, so she doesn't really have somebody with at that similar kind of position to speak to about how to approach some of these things. No, Alicent wasn't on the Iron Throne, but she was the queen, and she performed a lot of the royal duties that Viserys should have been performing when he was too ill to do them himself. So it makes sense to me that she's going to her, but I think she should be very, very careful, because you cannot trust everything that Alicent says. You can't trust everything that anybody says. But I specifically think that Alicent is definitely hiding some things. She's keeping her answers close to her chest so she doesn't give away too much. But her child being raised by Ormond definitely comes up in the conversation, I think more than once on this episode. And she's like, I was actually the one that made the decision to send him, which I had wondered about that. Was that Viserys' choice or hers? And she's like, no, I have these 3 boys that have been raised strictly as Targaryens in this Targaryen household, and they have turned out very awful, like psychotic and greedy and self-centered and just like have all kinds of issues. And so this was my one opportunity to get them away from this and have one of them raised up as a high tower in a very different kind of environment. And I did that for my child's protection. So I think Rhaenyra was like concerned, like, how did that feel to have to send your child away for basically their entire life? And she's like, even though, you know, like, yeah, this is gonna hurt you as a mother to be away from your child their entire life. But I think mothers overall, when they feel that doing this is going to be so much better of a life for that child than the alternative, they're willing to make that sacrifice. And I think that's kind of what she was saying, is that it was a sacrifice that I needed to make because I needed one of my children to actually, you know, be in a situation that I felt like was a good motherly situation, because these other kids, not so much. Now, she doesn't speak about Helena, but I think that's because of Helena being female and her just being in a completely different position. It just really alters the way that the males and females are going to be treated regardless. But as Rhaenyra is walking away, she turns around and says, you know, I would have spared him. And I'm like, really? Do any of us know that that would have been the case? Yeah, she's been sparing people and everything, but she has constantly, since she became in power, even before she became in power, had men at her ear telling her that she needs to fucking demolish people because they're a threat to the throne. And especially Damon is one of her main freaking counsel, and he's constantly telling her how she has to remove these threats to her throne. I don't blame him. I mean, she's already in this position because she had multiple males in her family that were a threat to her throne, and that her father never did jack shit to prevent. So it makes sense. It makes sense. It sucks. I mean, there may be other ways to deal with it, but what are the other ways? The other ways are keeping them prisoner and shit like that. And even if you keep somebody like that prisoner and you don't kill them, there's always the chance that they could escape and there could be a big uprising. So you do what you got to do, but I do respect her for trying to keep her morals when it comes to that and not just kill her brothers and sisters because they're a threat to her throne. Alan and Corlys are confronting each other because Corlys is going on to fight with these triarchy that had invaded their ships, mostly because he just needed something to fight about, I think, but to feel like he's doing something of value without being with the queen. I mean, honestly, the last several times I've seen him in the position of hand to the queen, he has offered nothing. Even before she turned him down for naming his sons as his legitimate sons, even before that, he was really giving no real advice. And that sucks because he has good advice to give. He just kept taking a back seat. Now he's mad at her, so he definitely doesn't want to be on the council bugging her about what he thinks should be done when he's already fucking pissed off at her and maybe sees her as not the most legitimate person. I still have a huge problem, though, with people saying she's not legitimate because her children were bastards, because she has plenty of children that are not bastards. If you want to get really fucking technical and you really want to throw a shit fit and say that these kids are bastards, they can't be heir to the throne, you can still take the other ones that aren't bastards and say that they can be heir to the Iron Throne. She still has sons that are legitimate by every accounting, and she is legitimate. She is not a bastard child. So yeah, she's a female, but get over it. Get over it, because her father named her heir, and her father was unequivocal about that. Her father was the king, and the king's word is supposed to fucking stand. That's what I got to say about that. But because Corlys doesn't want to be there operating as the hand, he sends Alan off to operate in his stead, and Alan is like, I don't know anything about the royal court. Like, you're sending me into something that I am completely ill-equipped to handle. I was like, well, maybe you should at least assign him somebody that can kind of train him up a little bit so he'll know how to behave appropriately in the royal setting and everything, and he'll feel a little bit more comfortable. But when I saw him go and speak to Rhaenyra, honestly, I thought they clicked very well, and he did give her good advice. And I was very excited to see that she was complaining about the rodent problem and how she was so upset because fucking Aegon killed all the damn rat catchers. And he's like, well, when we're in the ships, we use cats to get rid of these things, which is a thing, spoiler, book spoiler, this is a thing in the book where there's this whole storyline about how they get a whole bunch of cats and set them loose in King's Landing to try to get rid of these rats. And I'm very excited about this. I mean, honestly, I feel like there were several storylines that they're starting to thread together to go along with stories that were in the books that we weren't sure whether they were going to be dropped or not. And it sounds like some of them they're bringing in late. a little after the fact and maybe with different people carrying out the storyline, but they're trying to put the storyline in, even if it's not exactly the same way. So I'm very excited about that. Aegon and Larys are shown, and they get to where Silverwing is. And Silverwing looks very, very dead. Just dry and dusty and dead. Doesn't seem to have any movement going on, no breathing or anything. But Aegon goes and holds him and talks to him, and Aegon thinks he's alive. And I think that he is alive also. I think maybe he's just in a really freaking, I'll call it a dormant state right now. He's almost dead and he's just barely hanging on. I think he's been there a while though, so how long can a dragon live like that without having food and water? So that's my biggest concern, is that in the first place, I don't actually know how long it's been since the dragon went down, since Aegon got his face burnt up. There's several things that go on in this episode that timeline is kind of important. And this is one of them. How long has that dragon been laying there looking dead without food and water? And how long can they actually survive that way? I don't know. But Larys is calling Aegon Gregor, which I found amusing. So he's giving him a false name, which makes sense. You gotta maintain these stories so you don't give away who he is. But Aegon is really bad about just being the royal asshole that he is and not understanding that he needs to fucking keep his cover. Or maybe he understands very well he needs to keep his cover, but he just doesn't give two shits. He's just like, how dare you fucking speak to me like this? I could have your tongue. Like, it's just like constantly giving people shit for not treating him like royalty when he is playing the role of somebody who is not royalty. I did find it kind of amusing that the people that were watching over Silverwing were like charging like a penny for each hand that you put on there. And then he said that there was some other amount that he would charge that was extra for doing some other stuff. And so then Larys is like, no, we're good with just laying hands on the dragon. And he's like, well, you laid 2 hands on the dragon, so I need more change for it. And then later on, we're going to see another situation where he's trying to exchange money for help, for, just dealing with their situation. And yeah, that goes about as well as you can expect, with people just constantly trying to make money off of everybody, take advantage of everyone. I think maybe Larys needs to stop pulling out his change purse and just have a little bit of money on hand to offer people when he needs to make exchanges like this without showing that he's got this entire change purse. They're like, yeah, I see you got more. Let's hand over more. So he hands them the entire freaking change purse. And I'm like, that's just stupid. Just stupid. Why'd you do that? I know he wants to keep them off their ass, but we get to Harrenhal, and the Harrenhal queen is there. No, she's not an official queen, but I'm going to call her the Harrenhal queen. She's like, yeah, the master of the house has been slain, because they're asking, like, who's in charge here? Here's the person in charge. And she's like, yeah, he was slain. Yeah, the ancestors before that are slain. Yeah, everybody in the line is slain. I'm basically what's left. Get over it. So... yeah. And they're like, well, where is Aemon? He should have arrived here a while ago. And she's like, oh, yeah, you want to know about him, don't you? Of course you do. And she says something about, yeah, he came in and invaded right after Daemon abandoned Harrenhal and Queen Rhaenyra took over King's Landing. And they're like, what? What happened? And she's like, oh, you didn't know. And you could tell she's like, it's not really she's being sarcastic, but she's playing it off like, oh, you didn't know, even though she knows damn well they didn't know. Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, Queen Rhaenyra took over King's Landing. Like, y'all really fucked up. So And they're like, so where is Aemon? Oh no, he left a while ago with his dragon or whatever. And they go and search Harrenhal and they don't find him. We're still wondering, where is he and the dragon? The dragon ain't just gonna disappear. But she does have some sort of magic, it seems. So maybe she's able to find some way to make it look like it's not there. I don't know. Maybe they have some huge place somewhere or another where it's not going to be easy to find a super giant dragon like that. I don't know. But I suspect that Aemon is just still really, really fucking ill and is still on the mend. And I don't, again, know how long it's been since we saw him killed over, almost dead in front of her. I guess we'll find out later. But they didn't see him, so they are just taking her word for it. Gwaine suggests they should send word to Ormond Hightower of what they found and that they need to come and join ranks with him. And Cole is like, no, we're not doing that. Yeah, y'all, your fucking games that you play of who's winning the throne this week and all of this shit, and you get to go back home to your fucking feather bed while somebody like me, who doesn't have a position like you do, who's never had a position like you do, doesn't have a real home to go to when we win or lose various situations. So he's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not conceding defeat. I am not going back there to join ranks with your cousin. He says that he wants to start attacking these people quietly in the dark, like a scorpion attacking oxen. Just basically terrorize people, have them scared shitless, and kill them off a little at a time. And sure, we're not likely to ever win this way, but we won't be freaking made into beasts by these dragons. Like, he's so fucking bent on this terror of the dragons that he's just willing to do whatever other terrible, awful shit that there is in order to stay away from the dragons. And honestly, Cole has been the biggest fucking hypocrite all along. He's so full of shit about all his fucking honor and morals and stuff like that, and trying to act like, oh, he's trying to keep some morality or honor in this situation when he has repeatedly done dishonorable shit. And he goes on to fucking continue insulting Rhaenyra when she's the one that fucking raised him up. I'm like, you are a fucking upshot, raised up nothing. And it's because of her. She raised you up. And then Alicent kept you on when you did something that you should have been fucking put to death for. And she fucking took care of you, kept you in a leadership position, both of these girls, and you're acting like this. Like, I mean, it's just a constant fucking state of hypocrisy for him. But that's him. That's how he is. His honor is all a show. It's all bullshit. Okay, and now is where we actually see Alan and Rhaenyra talking to each other. I know I had already brought it up before. They're talking to each other, and he sees the remnants of Viserys model city. And so Rhaenyra proceeds to talk to him about what she thinks that it was for him, that it was some reminder of great Valeria and how even the greatest regimes can be brought down to nothing in the blink of an eye. I think it was a good moment of connection, and she also talks to him about the reality of how fathers can be so inspiring yet so fucking aggravating at the same time. They can be so infuriating yet so inspiring all in one, and they definitely seem to click there. And then she talks about the problem with the rats, because these rats are up in her dad's stuff. I was hoping that they would be a little bit more mediated, because she had done that thing with serving a bunch of rats to all the royalty, but it looks like there's still lots of them there, which I guess that makes sense. You don't have somebody regularly trying to keep track of these things. But yeah, he suggested when we're on the ships, we use cats to take care of the mouse and rat population. So I'm really hoping that we get that book storyline in a different way, but still get that book storyline for dealing with the rats. And then we get to Larys and Aegon again. I think they're in Rook's Rest or on their way to Rook's Rest something to that effect. They get there, they're looking for some shelter, and that's when he gives money to this guy, and then the guy's like, yeah, more, and he's waving his whole fucking money bag there, and just hands him over the whole money bag, which I thought was stupid. But in the deal, it's basically, okay, you guys can work for a place to stay, but you're gonna be working with shit and piss. And Aegon's like, I ain't fucking touching the toilets. Don't even fucking think about it. And he's like, you don't have any fucking thing to say about it. Larys keeps trying to get him to shut up and trying to get him to stop freaking ruining the situation, because that's what he's doing. He's like, every situation they get in, he's ruining it because he wants to express his royal privileges on everything, even though right now he's supposed to be pretending to not be royal. None of these people seem to know that he is Aegon. Some of them do seem to be taking notice that something's up, that this guy ain't no fucking peasant. He speaks well, he reads well, and he keeps fucking flying off the handle about stupid shit. But I liked how the one guy called one of his people Tangletongue, and then he called Aegon Mangleface, just continuing on creating this kind of story. And this is one of the things I was thinking about. What Larys is doing is both trying to figure shit out, trying to keep this storyline going so that they can continue moving in the directions they're moving, hopefully without getting killed or some other awful thing. What he's doing is likely to create these legendary stories. I think he says something about it at some point, creating a legend or something like that. He was talking to Aegon, what he's going through now, the things that they're doing now, with Rhaenyra saying that he was killed by his brother, and Aegon got all pissed off about it. But Larys is like, you're going to be able to use this shit later on to create your own legendary story of how you come back from the dead. That's big. I was thinking about that. There were some other things later on, though, in the episode with Ormond Hightower and Rhaenyra and Daeron that I feel like the nonsense that he's spewing throughout the times that we're seeing him is likely creating the stories that we hear later on in the freaking Song of Ice and Fire book about what was so awful and so terrible about Rhaenyra. Doesn't seem to be true. For the most part, a lot of it seems to be false. And a lot of it seems like it's coming straight from Ormond's mouth. I'm sure from other people's mouths too, but like he seems to be contributing a lot of the story that I remember hearing in A Song of Ice and Fire. Then we see Ulf taking a last swing at the tavern before he goes to talk to Rhaenyra about the asks that he wants for his buddies at the tavern. And she like picks up on the fact that everything he's asking for is not for him, it's for somebody else. And he, of course, gives away that this is for his buddies at the tavern. And she's like, what's going to happen when somebody at the tavern decides to fucking knife you in the belly? You're giving away your privilege to these people at the tavern. Like, I mean, that's the way I see it. You're giving away your privilege to other people at the tavern. And that's all fine, if that's how you feel that you need to help your friendships or whatever. I just think not the best way to do things. But she's like, no. You are not just your own, because he's like, but it's my belly. And she's like, no, this isn't your belly anymore. Your dragon, all of it are also mine. And if you go and get yourself killed, you go and get your dragon killed, then I'm without a dragon and a dragon rider. Like, so no more tavern. And I was just like, oh, that's not gonna go well. But yeah, she's like, no more tavern for you. You can stay and drink your mead in the keep and do your duty like you're supposed to, but otherwise you need to stay here and you need to stop going out to the tavern and everything. And I'm like, oh, I can see where this is going. Like there's so many things with Ulf that are questionable anyway. He is not the most upstanding character, and so it's not infeasible at all that he would possibly turn on Rhaenyra. But there's more and more stuff being done by her and by people in her court that I think Ulf is going to just eventually be like, no, like this sucks and I don't want anything to do with it. He has no real loyalty, so he's not going to see a reason to stay loyal to her. I still wonder though about Hugh the Hammer, like how that comes about. And speaking of Hugh the Hammer, his wife and her family, her brother and her brother's wife, they're all speaking to Ormond Hightower, very, very upset because this asshole has fucking tried to sexually assault Hugh the Hammer's wife and has broken the arm of her sister-in-law. And then her husband goes and freaking hits the guy because of what he did to his sister and his wife. And it appears that Ormond is going to like do the right thing and hold this guy accountable, keep him in his charge still, but break his arm and make him pay for what he did, and at least teach him a lesson that this is not something that I see as acceptable. But then later on, he brings back the girl's brother and has fucking Darren kill him because he put his hand on one of the Hightowers. And if you remember, back in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, that whole fucking trial of the seven was based primarily on the idea that Dunk had put his hands and feet on royalty. And so this guy is seeing his family and his situation as being as privileged and high up. Actually, he sees them as more superior than the Targaryens. He sees them as the superior family, superior race, superior people, like a similar kind of situation. He's basically acting like, no, you put your hands on our royalty and we are the supreme beings and we can't allow that. I'm going to use my freaking ward to kill you, to set an example, and to instill more fear in my ward. I mean, you can see in the eyes of this kid that he has been abused and traumatized and that he's kind of used to it. You see his hypervigilance. You see him warn one of the kids to fucking get out of the room when he can see that a fucking abusive temper tantrum is gonna come on. Like, you see that. And then he later on goes and has this kid fucking kill for him for something the kid vehemently disagrees with him about. Like, you can see that this kid has some decent morals and ethics despite who's been raising him. And this guy's just trying to fucking smash it. He's just trying to obliterate it and brainwash this kid. And it's a fucking sad thing to see. But it happens. Then we see Daemon. He's supposed to be out over with Rhaenyra in King's Landing at her council meeting, and he is talking to Jane Eyre, trying to get her to give him some money. And they do have an interesting conversation. She is very open about the fact that, yeah, you guys say we made this fucking deal or whatever, but she offered me a freaking dragon that was a baby. And I'm supposed to send her men. Maybe I should send her a bunch of babies. And he's like, no, you made an oath. She's like, supposedly you guys won the war, so why am I sending you troops? And he's like, oh, no, I don't want troops. I want money because the coffers are empty. She does go ahead and give him, I think it was like 10,000 gold or something like that, or 20,000 or 15,000. I don't remember. And as he's leaving, Caraxes is going batshit crazy. Caraxes senses something is fucked the fuck up, and he is just not having anything to do with the fucking commands that Daemon is giving him. He's just like, we are doing this. I don't care what you say. Daemon's yelling at him, and Daemon's trying to get him to be obedient, and he's just like, no. He lands right near this cave. And Daemon goes in and finds out that it's Rhaena and Sheepstealer. And Rhaena is all kinds of messed up. Her hair, I don't know if it was all cut off or singed off or what. Her hair is pretty much gone except for the mess of tangles all up on the top of her head. And of course she's been living in this cave with Sheep Stealer for a while. Who knows how long, since the timeline here doesn't seem to be very clear. And he's like, what did you do to yourself? He finds out, because she's very honest about it, that she thought she was helping, and she is the reason that Sheep Stealer ended up killing Jace, but that it was an accident. And he tries to convince her to come back with him, that they'll make up a story, or that they'll try to plead with Rhaenyra or whatever. And she's like, I can never go back in front of her, not after what I did. I can't do that. He's talking about how she can't like force him to deceive Rhaenyra, and she's like, I have never fucking asked you for anything in my entire fucking life except for this. It's the one thing. Leave me here alone to serve my fucking penance, but don't force me to go back in front of her after what I've done to her fucking kid. The consequences of her stupid actions resulting in killing her kid. So she's basically given him an ultimatum, and then fucking Sheep Stealer takes off. I don't know if Sheep Stealer had Rhaena on him or not, but we see Daemon look down the mountain at a shepherd with a bunch of sheep, and you can see he got some fucking brilliant idea, and then the next time we see him, he's got this guy's fucking head burnt to a crisp and says that this is the justice for the person that was riding Sheep Stealer. He's created this whole storyline about how he's killed this person who tried to ride Sheep Stealer, and that he now has no rider, and that we'll probably never see him again because it takes somebody completely fucking batshit crazy to try to fucking claim a wild dragon. And Maceris, right away, you could tell she knew this was bullshit and that this guy was not Sheep Stealer's rider. She could tell. Rhaenyra, though, did not. She was just like, who is this? She was at least questioning who it was, but it seems like she pretty much took his story as what it was. In the end, she was just very frustrated that she wanted to look this guy in the face. She wanted to see him suffer, and instead, he's already dead, even though it's all a story. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is the parallels between what Daemon is doing now with this guy versus what her and Daemon did earlier with Corlys' son, who wanted to get out, who wanted to get away, and was tired of living this lie. And they created this whole plot that would make it look like he had gotten into a fight with his lover or whatever, and that he had gotten burnt to death when really he was alive and this was somebody else's body, and they helped him get away. It has a lot of parallels. It's definitely not the same, but there's definitely some parallels there that I definitely picked up on. And I was like, so now he's doing the same thing that the Rhaenyra that they did to Corlys, deceiving her with a fake body and a fake story to try to salvage what he can for his daughter. We get to another scene with Ormond Hightower. This time he's with Darren. He's received a note from Harrenhal, from Gwaine and Cole and all of them, saying basically that they're not coming, that they're going to stay at Harrenhal. And you can see this anger building, and Darren sees it before anybody else does and tells this kid, one of the servants that's in there, to get the fuck out, to get out now, because he sees what's coming. And this guy fucking has a goddamn temper tantrum and starts fucking chopping the shit out of this table because, anyway, like I said, I think there's a lot of fucking abuse there, and this kid has gotten used to being in the midst of this guy who has this explosive temper, who acts like he's all fucking up and upstanding all the fucking time, but really he's got this underlying fucking abusive shit. And he's fucking going on and on about how they're superior and that how they should rule the throne, that they're the rightful owners of the throne, and that Targaryens are beastly and awful, that they're not smart, but they're conniving and shit like that. Darren is, according to God's will, going to rise up as this new ruler or whatever. And Darren's like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you honestly going to have me rise up against my brothers? Like, this isn't just rising up against the other side. You're telling me to rise up against my brothers who are on my side, acting like it's all fucking hunky-dory. It's interesting. It is the same questioning that fucking Aegon gave to Alicent when she proposed that he should be fucking king. Like, you're seriously telling me to take my sister's birthright, basically? And now this guy's like, you're seriously telling me to take the throne over my brothers? Like, craziness. But that's what the guy wants. And he's been an abusive traumatizer to this kid. He's been brainwashing him. And the kid, you can see, knows in his heart that this shit's wrong, but he's also fucking terrified of the guy. And he sees the guy as his fucking father figure. And so he doesn't want to disappoint him. And he literally brings up the idea that, oh, do you really want to disappoint me by not killing this guy for me? Like, seriously, just so fucking awful. Darren even says, like, isn't a true king supposed to be merciful? Like, isn't a good quality of a good king supposed to include mercy? And he's like, you sound like your father. And you could see, like, as soon as he said anything about his father, his face looked completely terrified. Like, what has this guy been saying about Viserys to make this kid so terrified about being compared to his father? Brainwashing. Brainwashing. Okay. Now, after Ulf goes through that situation where he went to the tavern and he was trying to convince Rhaenyra to give pardons to his friends and give them property and shit like that, and didn't fucking ask for anything for himself, which I found interesting because he was the one specifically saying he wanted property. And she eventually turns him away, tells him that he's going to have to stop going to these taverns, just drink his meat in the keep and do his duty or whatever. And as he's leaving, he goes to rat out whoever it was that put the fucking bastard paint all over. I don't know if it was paint or chalk or what it was, but either way, they wrote Queen of the Bastards in King's Landing, and he ratted them out. We don't know exactly who did it, but she basically sent her gold cloaks to go and take care of the problem, to just make it stop, to just make it end. And these are gold cloaks trained by Daemon. They don't care if they actually have the right people. They don't care if these people are innocent. So they're just rounding people up, and they're just making an example out of whoever just to say that they did something and to terrorize the town. Which, again, this is another thing that's going to feed into that storyline that we see so often in A Song of Ice and Fire, of Rhaenyra being this awful queen who is so cruel and inhumane, and Maegor once again come again and all of that. And then we see Aegon again, and he is not enjoying his time with the fucking cleaning up people's shit and piss. And then he sees one of the people that's been working with him say that, oh, we're out of food, but it happens sometimes. I guess we'll eat tomorrow. And he starts throwing a fucking shit fit and yelling at the guy in charge. Who the fuck do you think you are, letting your people go hungry? And this guy is like, who the fuck do you think you are? And he ends up telling Aegon to fucking kneel at his feet, and Aegon's like, fuck you, I'm not gonna do any such thing. So the guy pulls a dagger on him, and then Aegon gets all serious all of a sudden. This guy fucking makes him fucking bend down and kiss his fucking dirty, shitty feet like they have shit and whatever all over them. Makes him kiss his feet like just really a true falling from grace. But yeah, we know that this is part of the arc that Aegon has to go through to become somebody else, because Aegon was a fucking awful trifling guy, and he probably did need to be knocked down a few pedestals, but that was just, wow, like, ooh, he's just so fucking stupid in a way. He keeps on getting himself into these positions, and he doesn't do anything to try to avoid it because he's so bent on these privileges that he assumes he should have, regardless of the fact that he's playing the role of a fucking nobody. Do you have any idea who I am? No, he doesn't have any idea who you are. And if he did, that could make it even worse for you. So maybe keep your mouth shut. Like, seriously. Later, we see Alicent dealing with some stuff, and you see Helena in the background trying to get her nightgown on, and it's just not quite fitting right, and she's just struggling with getting it on. And then she comes over to Alicent. I don't think she was even trying to get Alicent to help her adjust things. I think she was trying to do it, but Alicent just starts messing with it and sees that something is going on. The reason that Helena is having trouble clasping the cover that goes on her gown is because things have gotten a little bit swollen up there. They do not show that she has a pooch in her belly. I think what they're indicating is this growth in her breasts, because when you get pregnant and you start producing milk, sometimes these things do enlarge significantly, even if you're early on in pregnancy. And we don't know, but it definitely appears she's pregnant. This was something in one of the trailers that we were wondering about. It looked like in the trailer, like she was screaming in labor and sweat was falling down, but we weren't sure because there's all kinds of other reasons that you could be screaming and sweat falling down and moaning and stuff like that. You could have an illness or an injury or who knows what going on that could contribute to a scenario like that. But a lot of us were thinking there may be a pregnancy because there is this one missing kid from the storyline that she was supposed to already have had that people have been complaining about. And we're thinking that that's what this is. It's like her other kid being born much later in the story than what it originally was. Anyway, Alicent looks at her. She tries to help her out with her gown, and she right away notices like things aren't fitting right. And she right away, and you see the horror in her face. Like they are not in a good situation for them to find out that Helena might be pregnant with another child. And if that child is a son, which according to the storyline in the book, it is, that contributes to a whole nother line of problems. And while Rhaenyra has been very reluctant about killing anybody, for the most part, other than the people that she feels are at fault for the situation at hand, and those who are at fault for killing her sons, for the most part, she has not been trying to kill anybody else. But Daemon is constantly whispering in her ear that she should kill anybody who's a threat to her throne. And that kid would definitely be a threat to the throne. Yeah, you could definitely see the terror in her face. I think it was before then that Rhaenyra came in, offered Alicent the information that her father's remains were being taken to Old Town, like she had requested, and she gave her father's ring to her. Then we see the Gold Cloaks running through town trying to do their investigation, which isn't truly an investigation, making a bunch of people clean up the fucking Queen of the Bastards graffiti from off the walls, and just claiming people to be at fault for shit that they don't really know if they're at fault or not, and just killing them for it. This is how Daemon has basically trained them to be. They are not good people. They rule by fear, and that's what they're doing. And that storyline, as I've said over and over again, is going to feed into this story that they have in the Ice and Fire books about Rhaenyra being Maegor come again and Rhaenyra being this awful queen. And then at the end, we have that scenario that I talked about with Ormond talking about how they brought this freaking female, how dare they bring this female to rule over the Iron Throne, and they're going to get the High Towers back into their position of power, that they are supreme to these people, and that they used witchcraft and spells and such like that to create these dragons, which from what I recall, that's kind of what they say, is that the Valerians actually used a bunch of witchcraft and spells and shit like that to control the dragons, not to create the dragons, to control the dragons. But he is like feeding this obsessive fucking talk about how they are so supreme and that the fucking Targaryens are beasts and they're terrible and they're stupider and all this other stuff. Which, as I said before, makes me wonder how many of these stories are they saying were actually woven by Ormond's tellings of how things are. Like, we know that part of George R.R. Martin's storytelling when it comes to the Targaryens is this idea that you're using a certain amount of supremacy to claim that the Targaryens should be in charge, that the Targaryens should be the kings or queens of Westeros and all of this. But we're using that same kind of supremacy with Ormond Hightower, saying that they are the supreme beings and that the Targaryens are beasts and aliens and stuff like that. And that is something that George does, is create this kind of back and forth. Like, nothing is simple. All of it has complicating sides to it, and nobody's all good and nobody's all bad. Everybody's got some complex grays and undertones to them. So, but that's what happened this episode. Now I'm going to take you back to my life. All right, so that was my breakdown of the episode. My coloring is quite dark now because the sun is further up in the sky, so it's not like right in my window. Let me real quick adjust that. I say real quick. I don't know how real quick this will actually be, but we will try. Okay, I think we need to increase this. Yeah, that looks good right there. That should be good. Okay. All right, so I do have a preview. I need to get it ready. Okay, so I'm going to take you to the screen that we're going to watch the preview on, but I have to change it from the other thing that I was on to my browser window, which shouldn't take long. So let's get to this. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. That's in Chrome. And it is ready. All right, so I'm going to turn my volume off. So when I'm playing these recordings, I turn my volume off because I find that it contributes a lot of feedback that I really don't want while other things are playing. When those things are done playing, I try to remember to turn my volume back on. That way, we've got clear audio going on. I don't always remember, though, but I remembered this time. So let's go ahead and get this started. Mute this.
My patience has its bounds. Have I not shown you mercy? This is finished!
Rhaenyra has the throne. It is she who rules now.
We should have burned them when we had the chance.
A cunning mind can resist the most savage of beasts.
Rhaenyra's defiled our great house, diminished the Iron Throne.
She is no queen.
We have endured much. And though we languish, we will not lose heart.
We will join them glorious in battle. And they will sing songs of it.
Forward! 'Forward! 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 '
that looks so fucking awesome. Okay, so we see Eamon now. He is back. Let's go to the live scene. All right. Looks like we got lots of battling going on, which... Oh, hold on. Stop that. That's the episode 6 preview. I am not ready for that. I am trying to really stay in the order that I'm at and get all the way through my live stream before I start on the next episode. But I figure the preview right before that is okay, because I don't want to get too many spoilers and stuff. All right, so... yeah, that looks great. So I know I have complained about like having a lot of battle and combat and stuff like that. Like I get tired of it after a while. Like it looks very interesting to me at first, but then after a while, if there's too much of it, then I just get bored of it. But what they've shown on the episode so far, even when it has been battle heavy, has been done in an interesting way that keeps me engaged. So hopefully they'll stick with that. And this does look interesting. Definitely notice that Eamon is back on, so it looks like he, by the next episode, is already well into whatever recovery he's doing, and he's trying to convince his mom that Rhaenyra has defiled the throne. I do wonder if, like, the entire Hightower family has this idea that they are superior and that any female being on the throne is defiling the throne, and that any Targaryen that's not a Hightower is defiling the throne. But yeah, he's trying to convince his mom, no, we should not leave Rhaenyra on the throne. She's defiled the throne. We need to get her off, or whatever. Don't know exactly how his coming out is going to coincide with his brother Daeron, since Ormond seems to be trying to push Daeron to take over the throne. But who knows? Who knows? Is he going to backslide and be like, oh, well, your brother's back, so we'll let that happen? Or is he going to be like, no, this guy's been too raised up in Targaryen family and culture. We can't trust him. It has to be you. I don't know. It seems like he probably had the intention of trying to put Daeron on the throne in the first place. Just maybe he was working into it, and he felt like because Aegon has been pronounced dead and Aemon has been missing, that, oh, this is his perfect opportunity. And plus he was all pissed off. But anyway, and then Daemon, of course, we should have burned them all to the ground. Like, yeah, that's all novel. I think no matter what you do, you're going to cause some people to see you as horrible. But there is a lot of underlying shit going on that is creating images that aren't necessarily true, like I said in the breakdown and in my discussion before. And there's a lot of fucked up shit going on. Like, she inherited a bad position. She has a terrible council, so they're not good at helping her deal with this bad position, and she is not good at handling everything that is occurring with these bad positions. She gets good ideas every once in a while and she implements them. She gets good advice every once in a while, and when she feels that it's good advice, she implements it. But it's like there's too much going on too fast, and her council and herself and her supporters are not enough to fucking deal with the shit. They're too chaotic. They're too on different pages. They need to get themselves on the same page. They need to have a set of goals that all of them understand. And they need to be trying to help her with the things she says she needs help with. And that's not happening, which isn't a surprise. I've said over and over again that I think Viserys did her dirty by naming her heir and never properly preparing her, never properly preparing the kingdom. And to me, this is the result. She was never properly prepared. The kingdom was never properly prepared. Her people that should have been in place when she took power were never prepared. Like, none of that was set up. None of it was prepared. She wasn't properly trained. She was trained to deal with some of the diplomacy and shit in the royal palace or whatever. But there's so much she should have been trained on and was not. So it is frustrating. But the rest of the season is definitely, or whatever's going to happen on episode 5, because that said it was an episode 5 preview, looks very interesting. Very interesting. Like, a lot's going to be happening, and I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with it. And if they approach the fighting and combat like they have in the previous episodes, then that should keep me totally fucking engaged the whole time and not like zoning out and feeling bored of the combat. Because I definitely, some shows, when they get into heavy combat that lasts a while, I'll be like, oh, this is cool, this is interesting. And then after a while, I'm like, ugh. So I have not noticed myself do that with any of this. Anyway, that is all I got for you for right now. I am going to get started with episode 5. It is taking me a little longer to do these things than I would like, but I will get to it as quickly as I can. I know episode 6 is already out, but I will watch episode 5. I will take my notes. I watch it twice. I watch it when I'm recording a reaction, which will be put on later on down the road. I don't know when, because that I have to do a lot of editing with, and I'm not ready to edit those things yet. But I watch it for the reaction. Then I watch it with my husband, and I take notes while I'm with my husband for the breakdown. Then I go and watch people's reactions and stuff to that particular episode. And then I write down like what I think was the VIP and the piece of shit of the episode, the best scene, the worst scene, and then any other things that I have on my mind that I really want to talk about, the themes of the episode. I do want to do my rest in peace section, because I did add that this series or this season. So rest in peace for, I'm going to give a rest in peace for Maylise, because even though she died a long time ago, them resurrecting her dead body like that and showing her remains just like brought it all back up. So I'm giving her another rest in peace. It was very sad to see Maylise go. And a rest in peace for the shepherd who was killed in Damon's attempt to thwart Rhaenyra from finding out that Rhaena had actually been at fault, at least partially, for Jace's death. And then another rest in peace for, I think it's Hugh Hammer's brother-in-law. Really sad, really fucked up. I still wonder if some of that storyline is somehow going to influence Hugh Hammer to storybook spoiler. If that's going to convince Hugh Hammer to turn cloak and switch sides. It just seems like that would be a really freaking off-the-wall reason to flip sides. Because it's the other side that killed her brother. It's the other side that tried to assault her. It's the other side that broke her sister-in-law's arm. Like, all the bad things are happening from the actions of people on the other side. So I don't see how that would change his tune or his loyalties, but something's got to happen, so you get to wait and see what it is. Anyway, that's all I got for you for right now. I am done. If you watch my Testaments readings, I am done with that book. That book is finished. So my plan right now is to start reading this book. It's not a digital copy, it's a real copy. It's been sitting on the side of my bed for a long time, and I occasionally will read bits out of it to help me get to sleep. So I've read some of the stories from it, but not a lot. I haven't managed to get all the way through it because I only read it at my bedside when I'm trying to sleep, and occasionally when I'm at the beach and I want something to read. So that's my next reading option. After that, I don't have any plans. My books are mostly all packed up. If you know of any free digital book copies that you would like me to read that are available online for free because they have passed their copyright date, or because their copyright owner does a Creative Commons license where you are allowed to read that stuff for free. If you know anything like that you would like me to read, let me know. If not, I will try to figure out what I want to read next. But that's it. I am still doing Night of the Seven Kingdoms episodes. I don't think I have many episodes left, so I just need to, I think the only thing I still need to do to get the next episode up is work on my thumbnail. But yeah, Night of the Seven Kingdoms I do every Friday. Tokyo Ghoul Re Part 2 I do every Friday, and I will do each of those until they're done. And when that season of Tokyo Ghoul Re is done, it's completely done. There's no more Tokyo Ghoul unless they bring out another season. And then I don't know what I'm doing after House of the Dragon is finished. Outside of that, I have plenty of other animes to watch, but the TV shows that I want to do reactions to are not, as far as I can tell, are not ready to air yet. Not until like 2027. I think I saw one that said it would air at the end of 2026. So we may still have a couple months or a few months left. But that's it. That's all I got for you. I'll see you when I see you. Bye.